Antiquity Unveiled, the most marvelous revelations of the 19th century concerning the origin of Christianity, by Jonathan Manning Roberts. Epaphroditus, a Greek grammarian. I greet you, sir. I might as well state who I am, and what my name was, when in mortal form, in order that we may understand each other more thoroughly. I am the man to whom Josephus wrote his 2 books in answer to Apion. My name was Epaphroditus. I was not, as history supposes, the freed man of Nero, nor was I Domitian's secretary at Athens. My country was Idumea. Idumea? Is that how you pronounce it? Josephus and myself corresponded a great deal. We both belonged to the order of the initiated, the Freemasons of the 1st century. We were mainly interested in investigating occult sciences and to prove to you that Josephus was not only interested, but a believer in spiritualism. I will refer you to his account of Solomon, in which he sets forth that Solomon was initiated in the art of exorcising or driving out demons. Solomon received this gift from spirits under the mistaken idea it was from God. You will also find in his description of Solomon that one Eliezer, a Jew, drove a demon out of the obsessed individual in Vespasian's camp. And the test was this, that the cup of water should be set a certain distance from the obsessed man, and the demon would upset it as it passed out of the man. The only object I have in introducing these things is to prove that Josephus was a spiritualist, and that the Society of the Initiated was made up of investigators of what is termed mediumship today. I can also inform you why there is no references to Apollonius in Josephus's writings. It was owing to the obligation assumed by those who entered into the investigation of these mysteries that they should never manifest any conscious knowledge when they saw a brother of the order performing any of those miracles, as they were called, for fear that they would be charged with conspiring, as the skeptics then living would have done everything they could to ruin them. In the same way, they now seek to ruin mediums. Therefore, while they recognized and helped each other secretly, they never acknowledged each other openly. I know that Apollonius obtained in India the gospel of one Deva Bodhisattva. I want to say also that all the writings among the learned, that is, the translated writings, were written in those days in the Samaritan tongue, and it was not until the 2nd century that there was any account of those writings translated into the Greek and Latin languages. In the time of Trajan, the ancient arts were somewhat revived. He, being a student of astrology and philosophy himself, allowed a freer discussion of the merits of different religions. In fact, my age was the age of comparison, and we compared notes, and the materials that were thus collected served as a basis for manufacturing that great prod, Christianity. That is about all I can say. I passed to spirit life at Smyrna in 110. Again, I would say, yeah, why, considering the context especially, why would they be using the term, common era? Perhaps. But Anno Domini? No, they would never use that. And During the Christian period, particularly once we go into the Coptic era, we start to have text appear from not only Christians but the Jews of Solomonic magic. And by Solomonic magic, I mean seher, the evil magic, the calling up of the jinn and such. But the idea of secret societies and being careful not to identify each other. Cornelius Agrippa, didn't he talk about how technology will be viewed as orchestrating some spiritual powers to those who don't know? And John Dee was so good at mechanics that people thought, oh, he's a witch. Burn him. Burn him. Apparently they didn't get to burn him. They did ransack his home a couple times, I think. Anyways. Refer to Smith's Dictionary of Greek and Roman Biography for account of Epaphroditus. The spirit of Epaphroditus tells us that Josephus and himself knew that the powers attributed to Solomon were derived from spirits, not from God, as the ignorant and even Solomon himself supposed. But the greatest revelation of all is the fact that the order of the initiated, to which Josephus and himself belonged, was composed of persons who were engaged in the investigation and practice of spiritual mediumship and spirit communication. It appears that Apollonius of Tyana was also a member of that secret order, and that it was well known by the members of that order, Josephus among the rest, that the miracles attributed to Apollonius were only the result of spirit power exerted through him. It has already been plainly shown by these spirit testimonies, as well as by the strongest corroborative proofs of historical facts, that Apollonius of Tyana and St. Paul are one and the same person. Now, Epaphroditus and Apollonius were fellow members of the order of the initiated, and there can hardly be a doubt that the latter addresses the former. See Philippians 2:25. With these words, yet I suppose it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother, and companion in labor, and fellow soldier, but your messenger, and he that ministered to my wants. And again, in Philippians 4:18, but I have all and abound. I am full, having received of Epaphroditus the things which were sent from you, an odor of sweet smell, a sacrifice acceptable, well-pleasing to God. Whether the Epaphroditus thus spoken of by Apollonius or Paul was the friend and fellow student of Josephus, or some other Epaphroditus, we may not certainly know. But this much is certain. Apollonius, Josephus, and Epaphroditus were beyond doubt contemporaries, fellow spiritualists, and mediums. Well, that they knew that they could actively engage in their own spiritual experience. Mediums, not so much. And co-members of the same secret order of mysteries, out of which subsequently developed the Christian hierarchy, a scourge to the human race, the effects of which will not be wholly obliterated for centuries to come. It will be such spirit. It is such spirit testimony as that of Epaphroditus that settles the authenticity and truthfulness of these communications. And so we see signs in tonic too, but more in the Christian side of that give you cues where they got the information from. There were several reasons why Josephus did not mention Apollonius in his historical works, besides the fact that they both belonged to the order of the initiated, as referred to by Epaphroditus and other spirits. Apollonius, in his communication, gave it as his opinion that Josephus failed to refer to him in his history on account of the intense prejudice existing between the Jews and the Gentiles. Josephus, as is well known, was a Jew of the strictest type and a historian of his century. while Apollonius was a Gentile of even greater distinction as a leading character of his time. In this, history fully concurs. Hence it is reasonable to conclude that Josephus could not well have given such a historical account as would have done justice to Apollonius, without speaking of the great Gentile and saved so favorably as to offend the Jewish people, it being against their policy to favor the Gentiles in word or deed. Furthermore, Josephus was jealous of Apollonius, for the reason that Eleazar, his friend, who was also a Jew, as well as a medium for casting out obsessing spirits, could not manifest superior or even equal power to Apollonius in his wonderful manifestations, or as they were called in ancient days, miracles, and by this means become the oracle of Vespasian in place of Apollonius the Gentile. Now, Gentile is a great insult if you look at the Bible. So let's not use Goyim. No, we're not going to do that. Notwithstanding both these great minds were members of the same order, their oaths evidently did not bind them as to their religious or political views. Hence this fact may point to the reason why they could not be closely allied on the order and yet powerful opponents on religious grounds. In conclusion, we'll add that in view of all these considerations, we have what is deemed good and natural reasons why Josephus did not record in history any account of Apollonius. It also appears from all reasonable deductions drawn from these ancient spirit communications, as well as from history bearing upon the subject under consideration, that Apollonius of Tyana was the character which formed the basis and framework upon which the history of Jesus of Nazareth was constructed. Notwithstanding it is claimed that Josephus referred to Jesus of Nazareth in his history, he emphatically denies the allegation in a spirit testimony and states that it was interpolated by Christian writers and made to appear as evidence that such an individual lived and taught at that time. Even critical Christian scholars are compelled to admit the reasonableness of this statement as to the interpolation. Therefore, we also must conclude that it's untrue that Josephus alluded to Jesus of Nazareth, from that simple fact that such individuals did not exist at that time as represented by Christian writers. And that's the note of the compiler. And we definitely, just like today with the Freemasons, well, there's a tolerance with other groups. That doesn't mean that everybody there is some sort of forbidden occultist or something like that. Certainly some lodges you have to be of a particular, you might even have to be of a particular type of church, or you're not even going to, someone's going to blackball you and you can't get in. One would hope that wouldn't be the case. That's not really supposed to be the case, but in general, there's like, you can be different things. It's just certain principles you're going to be enacting. Modesty and discipline and science and various things would be represented by the rituals that they mutually take part in.